Well, this tournament, March Madness, is all about surviving and advancing. And even though Tennessee basketball won 77-62, and really the game was never in question against the Wofford Terriers, the 15th seeded Wofford Terriers, after the first 10 minutes when the Vols built a 22-8 lead, Wofford would not go away. They kept hanging on. They kept hanging on. Tennessee couldn't break the game open. Much to my chagrin, as somebody who had a parlay on them covering and Wofford failing to hit their totals, I missed on both of those because Wofford just kept hanging around. You got to give them a lot of credit for that. But at the end of the day, Tennessee still won a comfortable 77-62 victory over the Terriers and Dwight Perry's team. This is you could look at it one of two ways. You could look at it as actually one of three ways. You could look at it as concerning because Tennessee's defense, their perimeter defense, which has been their biggest strength all year, really didn't show up in this game, honestly. Wofford kind of went off. I mean, they were 11 of 26 from three. That's 42.3% on the year. Now, to be fair, they hit 9 threes on the year. They hit 9 threes a game on the year, but they only shoot 34% from three. So they were much more efficient from three in this game. You could look at it as, maybe you could look at it as Tennessee's perimeter defense was either tired, maybe they took the night off and didn't bother to show up, or you could also just say that maybe Wofford's just been red hot recently. I mean, this carries over from the Southern Conference tournament, which they won as a 6th seed because Wofford went 11 of 27 in their first Southern Conference tournament game, shooting over 40% from three. Then they went 12 of 29 in their second Southern Conference tournament game. And then against Furman to win the Southern Conference tournament, they went 14 of 28 or 50% from three. So they've actually been pretty red hot from three to win the season altogether. So you could say maybe that's why they shot well in this game. But for a Tennessee team that consistently has switched well all year and not let anybody really shoot well against them from three for the most part, except for Kentucky, that side of the ball, given what Rick Barnes' identity is, was a little bit disappointing. But on the other side, Chaz Lanier, who we questioned all year about his ability to meet the moment, well, he certainly met the moment in this one. Chaz Lanier tied a program record for 6 3-pointers in an NCAA tournament game. He is now 2 3-pointers behind Chris Lofton. He scored 10 points in the first 10 minutes, and he had 29 points overall. That led to Tennessee winning this game. They honestly may struggle without Lanier in this one as a 2 seed versus 15. You could see a radical upset if that happens. But Lanier did his part. He stepped up and balled out. And thanks to Chaz Lanier, Tennessee is moving on. Credit to Chaz Lanier. This was his first ever NCAA tournament game. In 4 years at North Florida, they never made it to March Madness or the Big Dance. And he steps up in the Big Dance. And in his first time, again, I've criticized him all year for not meeting the moment. I've criticized him all year for not shooting enough. Well, he didn't back off from either of those in this game. It was 11 of 22 from the field, 6 of 13 from the three-point line, had 5 rebounds, by the way. That's a big point, and 2 steals. And one testament to Tennessee, by the way, something they deserve credit for, is they did have 9 steals on the night. Wofford only had 11 turnovers. They took care of the basketball. The only reason they had that many turnovers was because Tennessee had 9 steals. Major credit to them. That's insane that only 9 of Wofford's 11 turnovers were steals by Tennessee. They were forced by Tennessee. That's a huge underrated stat. Beyond Lanier, we got to give Zakai Ziegler some credit. Zakai Ziegler had a double-double in this game. He had 12 points and 12 assists. But again, some of that credit goes to Chaz Lanier. Let's be honest, guys. Chaz Lanier was the reason Zakai Ziegler was able to get 12 assists. The same reason that, in the 90s, John Stockton was setting records for assists because he was dumping it off to Karl Malone. Zakai Ziegler got 12 assists tonight because he was able to dump it off to Chaz Lanier. And that's what made this a win for Tennessee. Ziegler was 2 of 5 from three, though. He actually shot well, and he was 4 of 8 from the field. I'm not going to say Tennessee's offense was really a problem. I mean, they scored 77 points, and you would say, oh, Chaz Lanier only had 29. Ziegler had 12. Nobody else really did much. But to be fair, it wasn't like nobody else was efficient scoring. Felix Opera was 3 of 5 from the field, had 7 points. Igor Milicic was 2 of 5, and 4 of those were 3-point attempts. He was 1 of 4 from 3, not great, but it's like he only took 4 shots. Same with Jemai Mashak, only taken 5 shots. He was 1 of 5 and 3 of 8 from the field with 9 points. Off the bench, Cade Phillips had 6 points, all at the free throw line, 6 of 8. And Jordan Gainey was 3 of 4, had 7 points, because he was 3 of 4 from the free throw line. Again, 2 of 5 from the field, misses only 3-point attempt. Where I'm getting at with this is that a lot of them just didn't bother to take a lot of shots. And I think the biggest reason for that was Chaz Lanier was so dominant in this game that I think, truth be told, most of the rest of the team decided to take a step back and let Chaz Lanier go off, let him cook. That might have been a Rick Barnes strategy too. Let's be honest. He's been frustrated. We know this all year that Chaz Lanier won't be aggressive enough. And Chaz Lanier said some really revealing things at the halftime interview. I want to break down more about Chaz Lanier later tomorrow when we do our full show. But Chaz Lanier said something very revealing where he gave credit to the coaches for putting him in position to score a lot during the halftime interview. That's something to talk about when we do our recap on Friday. Wofford, though, to their credit, to Tennessee's credit, the interior defense was there. This is an underrated part. Felix Opera played great interior defense. Kyler Filowich was completely taken out of the game. Filowich is their one center. They run that typical 4-guard set with one center, which a lot of those bubble teams or Cinderella teams in the NCAA tournament do. Filowich was 1 of 7 from the field, had 2 points, despite averaging 11.9 points and grabbing 9.5 rebounds a game during the regular season. Filowich did an amazing job. But on the other end, actually, funny enough, Corey Tripp, who is Wofford's primary three-point shooter and their primary scorer, was 6 of 17 from the field and 2 of 8 from 3. Tennessee did a relatively good job on him, even though he had 14 points. What happened was, off the bench, Jeremy Lorenz, 4 of 6 from the field, 2 of 3 from 3, had 12 points. And Jackson Silvis, 2 of 6 from 3, had 15 points, was 5 of 10 from the field. And Justin Bailey was 2 of 3 from 3 with 10 points, going 4 of 6 from the field. That ended up being the real big difference in the game. Corey Tripp, by the way, had 6 turnovers to go with the 14 points. I would actually say he had a net negative game. Tripp and Filowich are the two biggest stars. And while Tripp still scored 14 points, their net effect on this game was negative overall. And that's a testament to where Tennessee's defense was still there, just not where it needed to be. Bishop Boswell got some action in the first half. Did anybody notice that? Played a decent bit of time. It did feel like Rick Barnes was trying to get his guys a certain amount of rest. I mean, it's a Thursday night game after Sunday's SEC tournament win, so I totally understand that. Not SEC tournament win, SEC tournament loss to Florida. And so he got Bishop Boswell in early, much earlier than I thought. And, of course, towards the end, when the game was in hand, he put all the backups in, as did Wofford. So that was a big deal. But in general, Tennessee, not the prettiest win they've had all year. Typically against teams that run the slow pace Wofford does, Tennessee shuts them down completely. And so it was kind of shocking that Wofford did what they did. But they still got the win. They still won relatively comfortably while Wofford shot the best it shot all year. And remember this, guys. We talk about tempo. We talk about all these things. We're talking about Wofford shooting better than they usually do. One of the biggest reasons Marches survive and advance is a lot of the data points we have to go on how good some of these Cinderella teams are based on non-conference play in November and December. But we don't know how much better they've gotten since that time, since it's all conference play come January. That's why conferences oftentimes look overrated and things like that, because they're just playing each other. So you can't really compare Wofford to their league averages on things defensively a lot of times. And again, I am going to have a column a little bit later questioning the defense because there were some issues. But you can't really go too hard on Tennessee for Wofford shooting this well from 3 because this isn't the same Wofford team that was shooting 34% on the year. This is a much better team, as many of these low-level teams are. One of the reasons Cinderellas happen in March Madness is the lower seeds that get into the NCAA tournament are typically the teams that weren't necessarily the best in their conferences, but were peaking at the exact right time, which is why they won the conference tournaments. And now they're peaking going into the NCAA tournament. So for Tennessee to get this win, big deal. They're advancing in Rupp Arena in Lexington, and they will face a team from out west in Lexington in the second round, another team that is outside of the top 200 in tempo. So that should be a great situation for them to get to their Sweet 16. I told you guys they're either going to the Sweet 16 or the Final Four. I'm sticking with this. I don't see how they don't make the Sweet 16. And look, the rest of this bracket for Tennessee had been struggling before Tennessee actually stepped onto the court. For those who aren't following, yes, Houston absolutely dominated SIU Edwardsville, and Gonzaga dominated Georgia, but McNeese State upset Clemson. And also Purdue, a 4 seed, didn't put High Point away too easily. They won 75-63. So again, the tournament is survive and advance. That's exactly what Tennessee basketball did in this game. That's exactly what Rick Barnes wanted to do in this game. And this is Tennessee's 4th straight year going at least to the NCAA tournament round of 32. Major kudos to Tennessee and Rick Barnes for doing that. Again, hit that like and subscribe button, ring the bell, turn the notifications on. This is Caleb Calhoun speaking to you from the Banks and Jones studio. Play to win, banksandjones.com. I'm sorry, the show brought to you by Banks and Jones, play to win, banksandjones.com. I'm speaking to you live from the Ted Russell studio, Ted Russell Ford Lincoln studio. We'll have a lot more to talk about on the show Friday. Again, 10 a.m. Eastern, tune in. We're going to talk about Tennessee's defense. Has Chaz Lanier turned a corner when it comes to the clutch gene? We'll also recap other games and how that impacts Tennessee going forward. March Madness is here. Tennessee survived. Wasn't the prettiest. Defense wasn't what you wanted it to be. But again, after a 3 games in 3 days last week, including a Sunday grinded out fest, to advance without Wofford ever coming within 3 possessions is a testament. So Tennessee wins. We'll talk more about it Friday. Again, hit that like and subscribe button. Once again, we are on every weekday, 10 a.m. Eastern, and we will be on Friday at 10 a.m. Eastern, and we will talk about Saturday's game. Thanks for tuning in to this special live reaction with Caleb Calhoun. This has been a special presentation of Off the Hook Sports.